Hello, friends. So, today we are going to learn about the basics of programming. So, when we talk about programming, we just think of many different kind of languages like Java, Python, C, C++. But for learning programming, you won't need any of these languages to begin with. Rather, you would need some basic concepts that we are going to talk about in this video. So, let's start with some basic learning topics that we need to have before starting or before diving more into the programming. So, let's call it the programming fundamentals. So, if we are learning, let us first start with the fundamentals. So, let's begin and so first we will talk about some fundamentals like operators that we use in programming. Then we will talk about the looping that is very important part of programming and we use it more often. We will talk about function. We will talk about some functionalities like switch. We will talk about some concepts of recursion, storage classes, pointers, and many more. I would not like to overwhelm you with all sort of topics, so let's be short for that and begin with operators. Okay. So the very first topic that we are going to discuss here is operator. So if we start, what is an operator? Operator could be a plus, a minus, a multiplication, a division, a modulus. Uh, I think you might have seen this is for actually power. Okay. So now when we talk about these operators, we need to think about how we operate them. Like we have a rule in mathematics called BODMAS, right? So when we are given this, I'm sorry, BODMAS, it should be S. Okay. So when we are given these operators, we follow certain kind of precedence and we follow some associativity. Let's talk about these precedence and associativity first. Then we will dive into what are these and all sort of things. So this is the associativity and this is the precedence. So let's begin with the operators and how the precedence and associativity matters. Before that, I would like to talk about the associativity. I think this might be a new thing for you. So associativity if two or more operators are there, like we have plus and we have minus, and both of them have same precedence. Okay, then on we will have to follow the associativity. Okay, like first we take a look of the precedence, then this is number one, and then if the precedents are same, we look for the associativity. Precedence means that when we are doing the computation in programming, like we have 3 plus 2 plus 4 into 5 divided by suppose 1. Okay, this is any expression. So we have, these are the our operators. So if these operators are present, we need to follow some precedence, like in what order we are going to have the computation. Like are we going to do this first or this first or this first or this first? Okay, so we follow certain precedence. But if you see, if we talk about two operators, let's suppose these two are the two operators plus and plus, both having the same precedence because both are the equal actually. So in that case we will go for the associativity, like which for plus we need to do the first, I mean whether we need to do this one first or we need to do this one first, although it won't matter, but still, but it would matter if here instead of plus it would be minus. Okay, so this associativity then comes to picture. So let's talk about all these things first. Before that, I like to tell you about the operators, common operators that we use in programming and their precedence and associativity. So, okay, so we have certain basic operators that we are gonna look about, and this is the precedence part, and of course, this is the associativity associated with all of them. I mean, of course, we are going to look for the associativity after looking for the precedence. Like first we need to go for the precedence and then associativity, right? So we have this, this is the bracketing. This is a very important thing of board mass. The very first B stands for this bracketing, right? So, okay. Then we have our common multiplication, we have division, and we have modulus. So here we are explaining these three operators, and they have the same precedence. That is why we have kept it in the single row. Okay. Now we have the plus and then we have the minus. Both of them having the same precedence as I earlier stated. So if two operators or two or more operators have the same precedence, we need to look for the associativity. Okay. And then we have the equal to operator, which is also a very common operator you are going to see in programming, and it is also called the assignment operator. Okay, so this has the first precedence, of course, as we have in the board mass. Then we have the division, multiplication, and this is for modulus operator. This has the second precedence. This plus minus has third precedence, and equal to operator or assignment operator has the fourth precedence. Okay. Now, if we talk about the associativity, then most of the time the associativity matters. If for this it doesn't matter, but for this one, I mean, this will obviously having the very first precedence. But if we look for these three, if these three are present for an expression, then we need to look for left to right. L stands for left and R stands for right. If plus or minus are present in the same expression, and you have to compute that, then the computer will start its computation from left to right because of this associativity. But for the equal to operator, it is from right to left. Now, what I have written, I'll explain it here. So, before that, I would like to tell you something about the associativity. So, precedence, we all know it's related to baud mass that we do for the simple mathematical computation. But if two or more operators, right, are having the same precedence, right, are having same precedence, then expression will be evaluated based on the associativity. Okay. Right. So what does that mean? We will explain this through some examples. So let's start with one example. 2 plus 3 plus 4. I already told you that we have 2 plus here, but which plus to do first? Obviously, anyhow we start, we are having to get the same result, right? But which plus we need to choose first. So if we follow the associativity, like we have these two operators at the same precedence. So when the precedence is same, okay, precedence same, then we need to look for the associativity as I earlier stated. Okay, so if we look for the associativity, then for plus in the map, what we have learnt about here, the associativity is from left to right. Okay, so let's start from left to right. So this is left to right. So first we will do 2 plus 3 5 plus 4, and then it is 9. Of course, we are going to do if this way also, it is going to have the same result, right? But it would differ in case if this is not plus, this is minus. So let's start with another example. For example, this one. 2 into 3 divide upon 2. Okay, so here also this star and this are having the same precedence. So we need to look for the associativity. And if we look for the associativity, it is from left to right. So first we will do this. Okay, then this is 6 divide upon 2, and then also it will be 3. So this will be our answer. Okay, so we are starting from left up to right. right? Similar way, we have an example of 2 plus 3, then we have into 6 and upon 2. So again, you see, first we have to look for the precedence. So this bracket has the higher precedence than any of the operators. So we are going to do the bracketing operator first. So this will be 2 plus 3, 5 into 6 and upon divide by 2. So now these two are having the same precedence. So we are going to use associativity feature, whether in which we will start the computation from left to right, and then it is 5 into 6, 30 upon 2, and our answer is 15. So why we are learning this is because whenever we are giving any expression to the computer using any of the programming languages, the computer will follow the same operator, precedence, and associativity rule. Okay, so it is important to note how does the computation inside the computer is happening, so that we can get the appropriate results when supplying our inputs. Okay, so for example, if we are gonna use divide. Okay, divide is an operator here. So when you divide two integers you understand, for example, 5 is an integer, 2 is an integer, then we have something called whole decimal part, that is 5.2 or 2.0. So this is a whole number. Okay, with decimal. Or in terms of computer, you can say this as floating point number. Okay, let's not confuse with this. We can just say them as floating point number. Decimals or float, we use the data type for these. And for this, we use the data type of integer, like these come under the integers. Okay, so when we are doing the division, for example, we have some expressions like this, and we need to guess what will be the return value. So the return value we are going to compute. So let's say our expression is 5 divided by 2. Of course, we know that it will be 2.5. But since both of them are integer, our computer will also give the integer part out of 2.5. So it will not give us 2.5. No, it will give us 2 only, because 2 is the integer part of 2.5. Okay, so this will be the return value. But if you do this 5.20 divide by 2, I mean, this is a decimal and this is an integer. This is a floating value and this is a integer value. So the computer understands that definitely we are going to divide a float value with an integer. So it is going to give us this 2.5. So here it is important to note that when we are dividing, when either of these is a floating value, then we are going to get the output as float, because the computer will treat this 2 as also 2.0 only. Okay, for example, if it 2.0.5 divide by 5, then also one of them is a floating value, so we are going to get the result as 0.4, right? Okay, and if it is 2 divided by 5, then what will be the result? Since both of them are integer, so computer will give the output as integer only, that is 0. No, it will ignore this part. Okay. Let's see, if it is 2.0 divided by 5.0, then it is obviously guessed up. Both of them are float, then output will be also float. I mean the decimal. And then we have 5.0 upon 2.0. We all know both of them are float, so obviously the output will be floating value only. Okay, so the thing to note that if either of them is a float, the output will be a float. Okay, so these are the important key points to note. Right now, okay, we can just write it here as a note also. If both the this is an operator and this is our data. Okay, so if both of the data or operands, you can say, if both of the operands are integer, then of course And then output, of course, will be what? Integer only. Output will be an integer only. Okay. And if any means either the numerator or the denominator, if anyone is float, then output will be float only. Is it clear? Okay, let's move to the next topic. Yeah, one more thing, that the assignment for any if we are giving any variable, right? So for some of the languages, the computer automatically assigns it to a particular data type. For example, if you go to Python and you declare something as number, so the number, whether it is int or float, is determined by the compiler only. So how it is determined? So how the computer assigns it to a particular data type. For some of the programming languages like C and C++ or Java, you need to define whether it is an integer or float. But some of them, the compiler is smart enough to identify whether it is an int or it is a float. Okay, so let's have, we have this 5. So this 5 will be assigned to int, like 5. Now if you want to explicitly assign it to float, you need to specify it as 5.0. Similarly, if 5.3, if it is assigned to an int, I mean if you are typecasting it is into an int, then it will be 5, and in float it will be the entire thing, 5.3. Similarly, 5 upon 2, we talk about, if it is an int, the output will be 2. And this 2, if it is assigned to a float, right? Because since both of them are integer, so we are getting 2. If it is the same thing as assigned to as float, it will be 2.0. It won't compute it as 2.5 because neither of them is a float. Similarly, if it is 5.2 upon 2, it will be 2.5 since one of them is float. And in the integer part it is only assigning 2, and it is in the float part it is assigning it as 2.5. Okay, let's come to the next. And if it is 5.20 upon 2.0, then integer part will be 2 only, float part will be 2.5. If it is 5 upon 2.0, integer part will be 2, float part will be 2.5. If it is 2 upon 5, integer part will be 0, and float part also will be 0, because its value will be always 0 only. It won't compute as 0.4, right? But it will compute at 0.4 when it is 2.0 upon 5. Then it will compute as 0.4. When it is assigned to int, it is 0, and when it is assigned to float, it is 0.4. Similarly, when we have 2 upon 5.0, then also it will be 0, and it will be 0.4. Sorry, for this 2.2 upon 5, it will be 0.0, because this is the int part and this is the float part. So just keep this thing in mind. It is important to note. So this is one of the key fundamental part that I recently taught. If you have any question, please do ask. For now, we are going to end this basic operator part. Next, we are going to see the modulus operators. Okay, thank you.